My granddad, Dennis Longhurst, told me of the night he was sent on an errand to a local chemist's. On arriving at the shop, he was met with a scene of chaos. A crowd was gathered around the shop and police were sending people away. My granddad went home empty-handed. He couldn't tell me many details except someone had been poisoned and the story had received some news coverage. He thought he was about 15 years old at the time, and he said it was all very exciting. For many years, I thought he was talking about the infamous Birdhurst poisonings, but couldn't be sure. My granddad's family lived in Thornton Heath, and South Croydon seemed too far away for an errand. I forgot about my granddad's story until recently when I pieced together articles concerning a chemist shop in West Croydon. On a Sunday evening in September 1934, radio listeners were tuned into a concert on the BBC. The programme was interrupted by an urgent announcement.
This is the BBC regional programme. We interrupt your Sunday evening concert with an urgent announcement.
The message concerned a chemist shop in West Croydon. Listeners were warned not to take medicine they had collected there that evening. But what had happened? And why was a local chemist shop important enough to interrupt a BBC broadcast? Was this the same incident my granddad had stumbled into? 335 Whitehorse Road in Thornton Heath is a shop-to-flat conversion. Previously it was a gift shop called Something Original, but 90 years ago it was a pharmacy and the centre of a public health scare that briefly reached thousands of radio listeners. Back in 1934, these premises were occupied by chemist William Thomas Sargent. On Sunday the 9th of September, the shop opened as usual, but Sargent himself was away on a Mediterranean cruise. In his place was a temporary chemist, Mr. W. Anderson, of Bensham Manor Road. At first, everything appeared normal. Prescriptions were prepared and handed out to customers throughout the evening. But at around 8 o'clock, a customer noticed that Anderson seemed unwell. Concern quickly escalated. Police were called, and shortly afterwards, Anderson collapsed and was taken to hospital. This raised an alarming question. What medicines had been dispensed that evening, and could any of them contain mistakes? With no practical way of tracing customers, the authorities turned to the BBC. During a live regional broadcast, an urgent warning was issued.
Will any person who has obtained medicine on a prescription since 6 p.m. today from a chemist shop at 335 Whitehorse Road, West Croydon, please refrain from taking the medicine, as there is a possibility of an error in dispensing. I repeat, will any person...
It was an extraordinary step. A problem in a single Croydon chemist shop had become important enough to interrupt scheduled radio programming. Back on Whitehorse Road, crowds gathered outside the premises. Police officers spent hours examining medicines and removing bottles for inspection. They finally left shortly before midnight. A police constable was stationed at the door and instructed to remain there throughout the night. Yet despite the fears, no reports of injury were received. At Mayday Hospital, Anderson was diagnosed as suffering from mental distress and placed under observation. Within days, he'd been discharged. The chemist shop later resumed normal service under a qualified pharmacist, and the incident soon faded from public memory. Was this the event my granddad had witnessed? The date and location feel like a match, but his memory of someone being poisoned isn't backed up by the news coverage. I'll never really know for sure, but regardless, it's a fascinating glimpse into a very different age. Long before social media, mobile phones or rolling news, a single BBC announcement could carry urgency and concern across an entire region. And for one September evening in 1934, the most important story on the airwaves began at number 335 Whitehorse Road, a short distance from my granddad's home.